this book, like you said at the beginning, Imminent, it did kind of change people's perspective of what Luis Elizondo had brought up in the past, kind of what, like you said, he was more nuts and bolts. Okay, this is what I'm into. And he stated that was, you know, his itinerary essentially for when he was in ATIP or, whatever program, or, in the Pentagon looking into this, that he was looking into more modern, events and nuts and bolts. But then this book comes out and you hear about he's got remote viewing capabilities and had them for a while. And in fact, got so good, he can drop into that mode like a light switch, no prep, no nothing, can just, flip the switch. So I'm curious, like, what you think about that revelation, and had you heard anything about that before the book came out?
Yeah, there was rumors that he was into that. That there were stories that had circulated, not obviously as widespread prior to his book release, but yeah, there was some rumors about that. So I was a little aware of it, but I had never talked to him about it and never asked him. And when it comes to his ability, I don't know enough about remote viewing to sit here and judge it. I
Yeah.
really don't. I mean, I've got all the
Mm.
files. I've had them for years and years and years from the CIA and the Stargate collection. I was one of the first, or arguably the first, ever to put them online. So there were a couple researchers that were vying for these things, and this is going back 25 years or whatever it was ago when we were fighting for them. And the CIA finally released them, and it was all part of the Stargate collection. And they had brought in a lot of their CIA remote viewing material, but also some of the other stuff like Grill Flame and Sunstreak, I think was the other program name
Wait,
from
what?
DIA and our yeah. There's
Grill
it's a
Flame
whole
and
show in itself.
Sunstreak? Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, you're
these
right. Okay.
were different types of
There's
programs
betters
that
right now just Googling. They're like,
yeah. Yeah,
Grill
and you
Flame.
find that with a lot of things. A quick note on that: you find that with a lot of things. Even MK Ultra was the same thing, where MK Ultra we all know is the mind control CIA program, but
Yeah.
there were other operations and research programs specifically for a defensive reason through the U.S. military, so outside of the CIA, and the CIA caught wind that they were trying to defend against what at the time was a Soviet. Um, Research endeavor to essentially mind control our intelligence agency agents if they captured them. So our intelligence agencies, namely the CIA, said, "Well, hey, if we can do this for defensive reasons, let's see what we can do for an offensive sort of thing." So
Hmm.
that kind of spawned into MK Ultra, but. You see that a lot where there's the one main program, but there's all these other ones that kind of branched
Yeah.
off of it or was the
Sure.
root of it, and that was the same with remote viewing. So the remote viewing documents came out, and look, there's a lot of interesting things that they did, even remote viewing the surface of Mars, and all sorts of crazy things that they did. And I say crazy loosely. I don't know how much truth there is to it,
Sure.
because you do have names like Uri Geller who is involved, and some other names that you wonder, okay, well, was this a legitimate thing? Did Dr. Howell put off potentially fabricate some of these results to continue to get funding for Stanford Research Institute or SRI? There's a lot of different questions there. So I don't have the answers to them. So going then to Luis Elizondo's abilities, he's connected to Dr. Hal Puthoff. So now you've got other questions that come up like, okay, what kind of techniques really have we perfected here, if any? And yeah, I'd love to know. I haven't seen through his interviews, and admittedly, I haven't watched all of them. People really press on the use of his ability with what it sounds like others to essentially harass a terrorist at Guantanamo Bay. There's a lot of questions there that I think whether or not you believe in them or not, or support that type of effort or not, that should be addressed. Is that a form of torture? If you could have that ability, is it proper to utilize that against somebody? Again, I'm not saying that I support it or don't, but I'm just saying there's a lot of questions there, and it seems like all the news agencies just kind of leave all that out of it and focus on some of the UFO stuff. And I get it. That's interesting. But when you pull in Guantanamo Bay and that type of effort to harass one of them, I think that deserves a few follow-up questions myself. So I
Oh yeah.
was surprised at all of that. I really didn't expect those types of stories, going from rumors that maybe he had that ability to, not only did he have that ability, but this is how they utilized it, at least in one occasion. Surprise to me.
I mean, I want to know who those other guys were that were brown bagging in that conference room with them, right?
Yeah.
Like, who are these other guys that combine their efforts? Which I don't know if I'd ever even heard that you could combine remote viewing efforts together, like a, like a Voltron, like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like we're gonna, I don't know, just multiply the power. What if you can already do that? How does it make it more powerful? Does that make sense? Like, is
Yeah,
maybe
and
the
that's where I'm
apparition
just
they
not.
created the apparition, right? That the guy supposedly saw.
Yeah.
Is that the next level, or I don't know?
I wish I had an answer for you.
Yeah, no,
Definitely
no.
not
I'm just
educated
throwing
enough
out
on.
questions. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah, but it's a conversation worth having, and
Sure.
I'd love to hear not only his answer, but, well, is the DoD pursuing this type of research? Did they see promise in it? That kind of stuff, because there is a lot of rumors when it comes to the Stargate program, and remote viewing, and then also MK Ultra and mind control. That public statement by the U.S. government is, oh well, we put millions of dollars into it and didn't turn out to be
Didn't
anything.
work out. Yeah.
But the rumor then comes around, well, we actually did have success with it, so it kind of went to a black budget program or something much more secretive. And that's fine. I would actually believe that, because history shows us the government has done that quite a few times with various research programs, where they start with public money. Oh well, it's being cut because we didn't really achieve anything, but then under wraps, they're still funding it. They're still going towards it. A lot of stealth programs, a senior citizen aircraft, or what people know as the Aurora. That's kind of a rumored example of that, where you did have the public acknowledgement that millions of dollars were going to this program, and then all of a sudden it just drops off the budget. So people believe, well, it probably went to a black budget program. Those types of things is what I'm referring
Yeah.
to. So did that happen here? I don't know. Lot of question marks for me, though.
What No, you make some great points. What was the program that Luis Elizondo said in his book? Like, it got shut down before he could get into it, or maybe I'm mistaking that. Wasn't that
I haven't. I'll fully admit I have not finished his book, so I'm not
okay?
not sure which. If you're talking about a remote viewing program, I'm
I,
not
I don't
sure
think he
there.
named it in the book, so I didn't know if you knew, during his time in, you know, working for the government, what that program was like. Because clearly not MK Ultra. That was shut
Yeah,
down.
all those were shut down for decades.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure what he
Hmm,
would be referring to, and that's what I
sure.
mean by a lot of unanswered questions, and that you can't drop something like that where, it's probably not a coincidence if he's got X amount of other people in a cafeteria or wherever he was doing this thing, that all of them have this ability. So was there a program
Correct.
going on, and that's why they were in the same building together? Is it just a coincidence they all thought they had this ability? I don't know.
Yeah.
Lot of questions.
No, you're right, and it is curious that no one that's interviewed him has asked them that yet. Not one person.
Yeah. I think
That
the
would be
major
my first
media.
question. I
I
mean,
would
if I
think
had
so
him on an
too.
interview, it would be literally my first question about that. Yeah.
Especially this media that's glommed onto again, I'm not saying I support it or I'm against it. I'm speaking just generally here. But the torture stories over the decades,
Sure.
and how controversial that whole thing is. So is this considered a torture? I'm saying that a little lightly, but also with half seriousness there. That could be. I mean, if you could get into somebody's mind and psychologically torture them, is that a form of torture? And is that something that our US government is undertaking on an official level? I'd love to know that. So I am a little surprised that they didn't ask, but in the same respect, I'm sure they get a list of like 7 questions from the
Yeah.
publisher or a
Yeah.
publicist of some kind for him. And that's what he's well versed on. And that's not to be insulting at all. That's just how these types of interviews work. You have a standard list of questions. I've seen them countless times over. I've produced quite a bit of television. If you go in and do an interview with let's say a big star, they do these press junkets, And the press junkets, they essentially, they give you 5 or 10 minutes to ask the star questions, and generally they'll give you a list of questions that the star is well versed on, so you don't get them, too off guard and make them look stupid. Of course, not all of them go completely scripted, but that's where the preparation comes in. Same is true with authors and stuff like that. So it's
Oh
not
yeah,
out of the ordinary. So these
sure.
newscasters that come and say, "Oh, I read your book. I loved it." It's like, "No, you didn't."
They didn't read
Come on.
anything. Absolutely.
Because if you did, then you would have better questions. So you wouldn't have these very
Right.
standard
Well,
very
that's why I
standard
expected some of these
scripted ones.
podcast interviews that he did for that to happen. And granted, some of them were really good, and they did ask some good questions. I really did enjoy Vinny Adams' interview,
Mhm.
which we kind of alluded to that, Lou had made a statement about, the harassment or whatever in
Mhm.
that interview. And I thought Vinny asked some good questions. But I do find it curious that that particular aspect didn't get asked more. Maybe Lou just like, you know what, I don't want to get into all that, and I can respect that too, to be honest with you, to some extent. Um, but it's also I can understand the other side, which is, well, of course we would all, as an audience, have questions about that and want to know more, especially if you're involved in remote viewing and it's someone you look up to. You're like, oh, I want to know more what he does, because remote viewing has gone far from just government secret programs. I mean, there's an entire public audience that partakes in remote viewing every day, gives courses, they have videos online, they promote it. Just your average everyday Joe, tries it out. So I think people would have a lot of questions about it. I mean, I do myself. I've never tried it. I don't know anything about it,
Mhm.
like yourself, just from what people have told me and whatnot. But I do find it as a very fascinating claim, that this remote viewing, astral projection, and now this apparition creation, if you combine enough people, potentially is, I mean, of course I'm fascinated by
Yeah.
by that. No offense. I just, right, like, it's what the hell's going on here, and what other moments is that happening? Like you said, it just leads this whole line of questioning.